Good afternoon. Thank you for joining the E79 Resources investor presentation. E79 is listed on the CSE with the ticker ESNR and on the OTC with the ticker ESVNF. The company is focused on exploring for high-grade gold at its properties in the Victorian Goldfields in Australia. Rory Quinn, President and CEO of E79 Resources, is here today to go through the presentation and the recent exploration program, including yesterday's finding of more visible gold at the Happy Valley prospect. After the presentation, there will be a question and answer period. So if you have any questions, you can input them into the Q&A box below or send me an email at tina@adcap.ca. As always, the presentation may contain some forward-looking information, so disclaimers can be viewed on the company's website. Hi, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, Tina. Let me just getting my presentation up here. Okay, everyone, thank you very much for joining me to learn a little bit more about E79 Resources. I'll take about half an hour of your time here going through the company, and then we'll allot some time for Q&A. I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I've been in the gold and precious metal space for about 15 years. Most recently, prior to E79, I was with Wheaton Precious Metals. And that was for about 7 years, doing a lot of the marketing for Wheaton around North America and also in Europe. It started out obviously as Silver Wheaton, but we did about $6 billion worth of gold transactions during that time, really layering in quite a bit of gold into the portfolio. I also sat in on the corporate development committee, and as we were doing these transactions and sort of reviewing any potential transaction of material size, really that was my first introduction to this area of the world, as we were sort of reviewing every real sort of potential opportunities, certainly a world-class gold mine like Fosterville. And as I said, that was where I was introduced to the potential of Fosterville at depth, and how that has really developed into a world-class asset, roughly an ounce per ton reserve grade at depth. So just getting into it here. I will be making some forward-looking statements, so please be aware of that. So this is the area of the world we're involved in, the Victorian Goldfields. And since Fosterville, Kirkland Lake's Fosterville, have done what they've done in proving out this world-class reserve there, roughly 6 million ounces. It's received a lot of attention and from Canada, and it's turned into a bit of an area play. Fosterville South, I think, being one of the key folks that got involved in this area. So it's been a jurisdiction that Canadians have been involved in, and has successfully raised money to do some work in. We were able to acquire 2 properties here. Our technical director and founder, his name is Martin Pavlicek, and he works for a prominent private equity company out of the UK. He was actually on these properties with BHP in the 90s, prior to them exiting gold. And so he picked them up, and they were actually looking for actually a Sukhoi log, this massive gold deposit in Siberia, an analog to that. BHP since exited gold, is even a mine as high grade and profitable as Fosterville doesn't move the needle for a major diversified like BHP. But when Martin saw what was happening with Fosterville in the context of 2016, 2017, he worked to acquire these properties that he knew from his time with BHP. And so even though we, E79 Resources, this entity acquired them in 2020, they were actually applied for in the context of 2016, 2017, granted in 2018. So they were very much priority ground within the Victorian Goldfields what we've seen develop into an area of play there. And so Victoria, until, as I said, recently hasn't received a lot of attention, but is now. It's been overlooked for a long time, not only internationally, but even within Australia in favor of Western Australia, where part of the reason would be is in Western Australia, if you wanted to put a land package of 500 square kilometers together, you might deal with only 1 to 2 landowners, versus in Victoria, you're probably dealing with 10 to 20 to be able to put a meaningful land package together. So Western Australia, certainly the path of least resistance with lower hanging fruit. But I think what we've seen in Victoria now, and even through some of the work that E79 has been able to do with the grades that we've been in, is I think has really renewed a focus on this area of the world. So I'll jump into Myrtleford, which is where we've been doing a lot of work, and we put out some news on yesterday morning. Myrtleford's quite a large property. It's about 500 square kilometers, including the new area that we've applied for. It actually includes over 70 past producing gold mines. We managed to tie up roughly 70% of the area that has historically produced about 5 million ounces. So quite a rich history of gold production. Most of it close to surface. So the vast majority of historic mining and exploration at Myrtleford terminated at the water table. So this was generally small syndicates doing the work here, and working small plots of land, not looking on how this mineralization might be connected, and very much due to a lack of working capital or technology at the time, we're not able to dewater and explore. So it was incredible to me, just the opportunity here, that virtually no modern exploration had taken place here beneath the water table, even beneath mines that produced historically at roughly an ounce per ton, which is what we see at Happy Valley, where we've had a lot of success drilling underneath that historic mining. Again, roughly at about an ounce per ton, which is what we see the reserve grade at Fosterville. As mentioned, quite a large property, 420 square kilometers. It's one contiguous parcel. We're focused here in the southeast of the property. It is very easily accessed through paved and gravel roads. We're actually drilling right off of forestry roads on Crown land, so very amenable to drilling and exploration. 100% owned. This is not an option that we're earning into. There is a 1% NSR back to the vendors and the founders of the company who are on the board. And this is a further sort of drill down into the property. So as you can see in the southeast at Happy Valley, that is where we're currently focused our efforts. And you can see the exploration license application we have just to the east of there to extend that. This is not the only area of interest, and it will be the subject of further releases from us. There are other areas of where there's trends of historic gold mines. And there's 4 others, as you can see here, particularly in the north. This is probably our second area of sort of priority interest in the north of the property, an area called Twist Creek, and that will be the subject of a future news release, and really sort of a high priority target that we see there. So lots of opportunity at Myrtleford. We are currently focused on Happy Valley, but this is a large property with a lot of opportunity. And so we're doing all the targeting work. We've doubled our targeting team, doing soil sampling and generating targets from 1 team to 2. We've just added a third senior geologist on the team, Caitlin. We were able to add her during the summer, and I'm currently interviewing for VP Exploration and country manager. So we're really ramping up here and increasing our presence in this area of the world. Zooming in further, you can see here Happy Valley is where we've reported these gold grades from. The intersect that really caught the most attention was 11.5 meters of 160 grams per ton. I think that has received a lot of attention from the market and from mid-tiers and majors. That importantly sits on a structural trend that is 7 kilometers on the existing property and 12 kilometers long, including the new license that we now have. So really, we're just getting started. I mean, we're just getting started at Happy Valley with 7 completed deep drill holes, 5 of which have been invisible gold so far. So that's just at Happy Valley along strike, and we're looking at a trend of 12 kilometers just in this southeast portion of Myrtleford. So there is just such a huge amount of potential on this property. This is a snapshot, cross-section of what we've been doing at Happy Valley. You can see here, these are the drill holes that we've done. These are roughly, some of these are roughly on the same azimuth, so same direction. I'll take you back to earlier in the year when we first started drilling. So our first drill hole ran about 60 meters underneath any historic gold mining, any known historic gold mining. And on our first hole, we were in visible gold. And that gave us a lot of encouragement. We then drilled a hole, so that was hole 2, actually our first hole, hole 1, only went down, I think, about 16, 20 meters. We abandoned it because it wasn't steep enough. So hole 2 was really our first hole. So that, like I said, intercepted visible gold roughly 60 meters beneath the historic workings. And then we drilled hole 3, 80 meters below that. So roughly 140 meters below any historic, known historic gold mining. And then we were in even broader, more spectacular looking visible gold at that time. So this was just the start of our drilling campaign, and people were just sort of becoming familiar with E79 and what we were trying to do. And so we put out early that we were in visible gold on our first couple of drill holes, and that created quite a bit of excitement. But I think also some, I don't know if it was healthy skepticism, but certainly skepticism that is visible gold going to translate into grade, right? It doesn't always apparently translate into grade. So, I mean, I think I was certainly optimistic that it would grade well. It perhaps did exceed my expectations, though. So in the first drill hole and hole 2, we were into 99 gram per ton material. I mean, relatively small intersection, but we were at the top of sort of what we're seeing now is this pretty well mineralized quartz vein running at depth. And then we were in on hole 3, we're in gold in 2 separate areas down hole. So another relatively narrow 0.6 meters of 146 gram per ton gold. And then this very broad, very rich area of 11.5 meters of 160 grams per ton gold. And we have since looked at those assays because they are obviously eye-popping assay results, and we've looked at them using 3 different types of assaying concepts and methods, and each one has only reinforced those assay results. So we feel very confident in those numbers, and I think what we've demonstrated is that visible gold at Happy Valley translates very well into grade. So the two holes of interest now are hole 6 and hole 7, which were both in visible gold. And hole 6, we were in gold in 2 separate areas along that hole. And hole 7, we were in a nice looking visible gold too, that I'm going to take you through in a minute. And then in roughly 5.5 meters of quartz, toward at depth there. And quartz is really what we want to be finding, right? I mean, if we think of gold, this sort of obviously mineralized area with gold is the fire, then quartz and sulfides are the smoke, right? So being in 5.5 meters of smoke as well is very interesting to us. This page on page 10, this gives an idea of surface and how we're drilling from sort of a surface plan and looking at it sort of as the crow flies. And you can see that we're fanning out quite a bit here. So to have drilled visible gold to the naked eye in 5 out of 7 completed deep drill holes, fanned out and quite well separated at depth, and to be in gold 5 out of 7 times, I think is quite encouraging to us, and certainly we're encouraged to continue on here in a meaningful way to keep drilling from this pad. And we feel that there appears to be plenty of gold here. And really, so we've shown here, I think the key takeaways, just even before we see assays here, is that we've been able to show gold in between hole 2 and 3, that we've been in gold. So we've been in gold sort of infilling that, and then beneath hole 3, which is that big 11.5 meters of 160 gram per ton gold intersect, we've been in gold beneath that. So the assays will obviously tell us more and sort of confirm our understanding here. Those assays have been sent off, the core has been sent off for assays on a priority basis. We've really just shipped off the obviously mineralized areas, the quartz and the gold in sulfides. And so we would hope and expect those would come back to us sooner than we might otherwise expect. But we are, of course, dealing with a tricky situation in Australia now relative to the variant, and I mean, they've been locked down in many states. So that is exacerbating an already backed up system. So it's not entirely what's not really in our control whatsoever, but we're controlling what we can by sort of getting the drilling done and getting the core off to assay in a timely manner. So I would hope to be coming back to you in October with assays, but again, not in my control. This is a look at the core from hole 3. So this is the core above here. That's what 3 meters of 126 grams per ton gold looks like in core. The area below is really the incredibly high intersect that we had within the 11 meters of 160 grams per ton. Is that with this incredibly gaudy looking core was represented 2,430 grams per ton gold. Again, this was 80 meters beneath our first hole, which was 60 meters beneath any historic known gold mining. So these were big shots and big swings, and we were in gold both times, and they assayed spectacularly. And so I think looking at that core, it's quite interesting to see this type of core too. So 5 meters of quartz downhole, visible gold starting at 150 meters. That was hole 7. At hole 6, we're in sulfides twice here, and we're in gold twice. So roughly 135 meters downhole, and then broader at roughly 150 meters downhole. Again, gold associated with sulfides, exactly what we want to see. And this here is a look at what these, they describe them as reefs in Australia. That's kind of an Australian terminology. This is it's essentially just buried quartz veins, usually subvertical quartz veins. And here where it's associated with sulfides on the side. This is what the old timers would have mined closer to surface. And again, virtually all of the historic mining and subsequent exploration is stopped at the water table. So that's Myrtleford. I'll take you through Beaufort now. I think what's interesting is Beaufort is now, I think, probably it's considered our secondary property with the success that we've had at Myrtleford. I would suggest that when we started the company in towards the end of 2020, Beaufort was the focus of the market. So we raised $6 million at 45 cents, no warrant. And then we were able to get to work on Beaufort and Myrtleford. I've had a tremendous amount of success at Myrtleford. I'm going to take you through what we've done so far at Beaufort, but Beaufort is a very intriguing secondary property, if we want to call it that. And I think a lot of attention here. I wouldn't suspect that we're getting really any value for Beaufort in the market, but I think it represents a huge opportunity. At Beaufort, there's been over 1 million ounces of historic alluvial gold production. So, and right at surface, never sourced to hard rock. And what's key about this is virtually all of the major mines in the Victorian Goldfields have had this sort of alluvial gold at surface, but have been sourced to hard rock. So this is what we call an enigmatic placer, in that it is not being sourced to hard rock. It's what we've developed there, and I think one of the reasons it was intriguing to the market when we first brought it forward is that it has a 2-kilometer long gold arsenic antimony anomaly, which is kind of that signature geochemical anomaly you want to find in this area of the world. Certainly is that sort of classic Fosterville type mineralization and expression at surface. Beaufort's a smaller property than Myrtleford. It's about 150 square kilometers, 120 square kilometers, I should say. One contiguous parcel, again, excellent access. Once again, it is 100% owned by the company. This is not an earn-in, it's not an option. There is a 1% NSR on it from the vendors and the folks that are our partners on the board on the project. Just dealing with the history here at Beaufort and why it's we were intrigued and why Martin wanted to acquire. Again, Martin was with BHP in the late 90s, early 2000s. He actually pulled in these assets for BHP when they were looking for a Sukhoi log analog. And Sukhoi log, I think, depending on if you're looking at their sort of universal resource or reserve grade mine, I mean, it's I think 50, 60 million ounce reserve of gold there. So it's a massive property in Siberia. BHP were there looking for something like that. There was something about the geology that really intrigued them, but they subsequently left the gold space. Placer Dome followed them into Beaufort, and I should say the context of this timing was, first of all, Placer Dome, where their mandate was to find 10 million ounce and above deposits, shallow, open pittable, relatively cheap to develop. And this was in the context of below $300 an ounce gold. So you can imagine not looking for stuff that's terribly deep, right? I mean, the Fosterville type mineralization was not considered here whatsoever. Now, looking at the structure here in the property. So north-south here, we have what's called the Navarre Fault. This runs for a few hundred kilometers in the area. in the region. And it runs right through the property. There's some cross faulting here. And then, as I said, this structure, we have a 2-kilometer gold arsenic antimony lead anomaly that sits right on structure here. And I'll take you through this, what we're seeing here a little bit. The areas in red, highlighted there in red, that is the alluvial gold production, the historic alluvial gold production, and associated workings. So over 1 million ounces of alluvial gold. The thesis that we've worked on is that over millions of years, this alluvial gold has been shed off of this ridge. So this Navarre Fault is associated with a ridge that runs all the way through the property called the Camp Hill Range. And so we're working on this thesis. It seems like the old timers that worked the area also thought that this ridge could be a source for the alluvial gold that was mined, the 1 million ounce plus of alluvial gold, as the top of that ridge is just pockmarked with shallow pits and attempted workings there. And really, they wouldn't have had a lot of luck. This is much more similar. So versus what we're seeing in Myrtleford, which is free gold, is metallurgically a dream at Myrtleford. I think 99% of the gold at Myrtleford will report to very conventional sort of extraction practices. At Beaufort, the material is much more like Fosterville, and so Fosterville has I think the first bioxidation plant in Australia, and that is how they deal with this type of material. So the old timers wouldn't have had much luck. They would have been in sort of saprolite stuff that they would not have been able to free the gold in. Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't have been able to get to gold at 30 to 50 meters. Where we want to be in here and is below 100 meters, right? I mean, certainly I think that you're probably in your oxides at surface, which is where the old timers would have been looking for something probably similar to what they saw at Ballarat, which is these shallow quartz veins. But what we want to do is get below the oxides through the transition and into the sulfides that starts at, let's say, 100, 120 meters. And so it's that fresh rock that hasn't been oxidized that we want to be in. And so we're looking for arsenal pyrite, and that's the sulfides at depth. That's the smoke that we're looking for. And so we've put 4 holes into this. I'll take you through a little bit of the targeting that we've done. The central grid in the middle of your screen is where we spent a lot of our time. So we were able to do the initial program showing that 2-kilometer long gold arsenic antimony anomaly, and then within that we chose areas of the highest gold within that geochemical signature. And so we stepped up from doing 100 by 100 meter grid into quite a tight 25 meter by 25 meter grid. And so that gave us some nice targeting information. And so we've sunk now 4 holes into that, which I'll show you in a second. Magazine grid is probably the area that's received the second most attention from us. We've found gold nuggets there while doing soil sampling, and so quite interesting to us. The gold nuggets we did find earlier in the year, quite rough pitted, and appear to be of a proximal source. Like they're not rounded or smooth like you might expect if it traveled far. So yeah, I mean, I think Beaufort has a lot of potential, very interesting to us. We're seeing gold arsenic antimony, the sort of classic signature that you want to find for gold in Victoria. We're seeing that at surface sitting right on structure. We're finding gold nuggets in real time. So it's certainly not moose pasture there at Beaufort. And interestingly, I asked if the Australians on our team if moose pasture translates over there, and interestingly enough, they call it moose pasture in Australia too, even though they don't have mooses. Yeah, they have kangaroos. They don't call it kangaroo pasture. So this is an idea of the geochemistry that we've seen there, and so you see kind of north-south along this geochemical anomaly, the gold, arsenic, antimony, and lead. And so we've put a couple of holes into the north area of that, and then tested also other areas of interest that sort of had the highest ratings for our initial 100 by 100 meter grid, and then were followed up on by our 25 meter and 25 meter grid, and showed the highest readings for gold within that package. So we will follow up on this. We've obviously had a lot of focus on Myrtleford and Happy Valley with the success that we've had there, but we're not going to take our eye off the ball at Beaufort. We will be following up on these results and bringing a drill back to the property. This is just an idea of the opportunity at Fosterville. If some of you may recall a company called Crocodile Gold in the early 2000s, they actually had this property, and so it was a pretty average mine, 1 to 2 grams per ton oxide at surface. Didn't receive a lot of attention. I think it was I think it's New Strike that had the property after that, had a bit of success with drilling, but it really wasn't until Kirkland Lake showed the commitment and the imagination to really drill this out at depth and continue it along plunge. So down into the Eagle Zone, the Harrier, and then the Swan Zone, and that's what really caught the imagination of the world to this area of the world, and is when we, our group, saw the properties that we have and acquired them. And I've thought when I looked at the properties that they were the best properties in the area available. And I've since been I don't know if I've been proven right, but we've had some, I think, probably the best results of anyone working in the area recently as well. Lastly, I think just wrapping up here on Beaufort, I think the similarities, we really do see similarities here between Beaufort and Fosterville expression, certainly at surface. Same age of rocks, same types of rocks, and then critically below, an almost identical chemical signature at surface. I've told you about my background. I think one thing I would add is that after my time at Wheaton, and I explored my first CEO role in the space, and I was offered a few positions that I turned down, and really started a process of just reviewing technical report after technical report. And I mean, I don't know if it's hundreds, but I reviewed so many opportunities. And these were the ones that stood out to me, Beaufort and Myrtleford, this package of properties, and it really stood out to me as the best thing I saw. And then you combine that with a group like Martin Pavlicek, formerly of BHP, now with one of the most prominent mining funds in the world, and having the benefit of his technical direction. And then otherwise just a super solid team. We've got a good team on the ground. Our targeting is led by Dennis Arne, PhD geochemist, who's very good. And Pete is a local in the area actually of Happy Valley and Myrtleford, and was quite familiar with the geology there. So his experience has been very helpful in drilling out Happy Valley and Myrtleford and spotting really. As mentioned, we've since added a third senior geo. Her name's Caitlin Brown. She was our top pick to join the team, and we were thrilled to be able to add her. And as mentioned, I think earlier, I'm now currently in the process of interviewing for a vice president of exploration and country manager. So we're going to hopefully very soon here have a very solid, very experienced senior geological team. I think lastly here, I would draw on as far as the team is concerned, I would draw your attention to Steve Butler. Steve was my precious metal analyst while I was at Wheaton. Steve has been with Canaccord. It was with Canaccord for I think over a decade as their head precious metals analyst. I think he then went on to GMP to work there. But Steve's been on. I've had him on a number of mine tours myself, and he's seen if it's out there and it's pretty profitable and producing precious metals. Steve's probably seen it. And critically, Steve was covered Kirkland Lake as they were proving out Fosterville, so very familiar with this area of the world. And when I took this role and I was able to show him what we were doing and what our hopes and plans were for the projects, he was enthusiastically came on board. So we're really happy to have Steve with us. And I keep this in the deck. We've since changed some of these work programs, really just not doing RC drilling and focused on the diamond drilling, because it gives us more detail, and we've got some really good rates for diamond drilling. I think we're seeing sub $200 a meter, which is really very good rates. But I leave this here. We've got Beaufort on top, which is again sort of how we saw things when we got started towards the end of 2020, just about a year ago now. But I mean, getting in, our execution has been very, very good, considering that we're talking about managing this process and these properties and advancing them from the other side of the world during a worldwide pandemic. We were able to get into the properties, do the targeting, get permitted, and run successful programs at both properties. And so I think we've been able to really deliver on what we said we would do, and I think that's at a premium in the mining space. I think it can tend to overpromise and underdeliver, and I would say we've done the opposite. Looking at valuations, I think we've done quite well relative to peers. We're currently at about 60 million market cap. I would suggest that is very attractive from a valuation standpoint, given the results that we've had in the space. Like I said, there's been plenty of money spent in this area, a lot of Canadian money spent, and I mean we're only 7 deep holes into this, and we've been in gold in 5 out of 7 of them, and some spectacular bonanza grade to boot. So I mean, we've had the best stuff, and I think we're still sort of trading it. We're trading along with peers, right? Even though I think we have quite obviously had the best results. So I think plenty of room, plenty of runway here. I'll take you through the capitalization. I mean, I think there's a little bit of broker warrants there, not much left there from I think the 45-cent round. But I mean, there's no, when we did our first raise, 45-cent, no warrant. We were able to grow the company to the extent that we did, then did a raise at $1, so raised $8 million at $1, no warrant again. So there's no cap here. There's a lot of runway for this to go on results. $11 million of cash in the bank, so absolutely no need, no requirement whatsoever to go back to the market. So I think you're looking at on an enterprise value of just $50 million, right? If you subtract the cash out. So I think it still represents a compelling valuation at this time. We're, as of today, trading beneath where Eric Sprott invested his money after these drill holes, and all we've done since is intersect and drill more visible gold, and with assays pending. So that's it. At this time, I'd love to open the floor up to questions.
Great. Well, thanks for the presentation. Really interesting, and congrats on the news yesterday. I'm looking forward to seeing the full results. As I mentioned at the beginning, if anyone does have any questions, feel free to enter them into the Q&A box below. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Five holes with VG out of 7 on the first go around. So that's amazing, and you don't really see that too often. It's, I guess, early days, but given the correlation you saw in the first 2 holes with the actual drill results, do you have any sense of how these latest set of results compare?
No, right. I mean, I think you can see the width, but I mean, I think it's not every day that you intersect 11.5 meters of 160 grams per ton. Now, there were within that there, I think we finished off at 3 meters of 145 grams per ton. So, and then separately, there was 0.6 meters of 2,430 grams per ton. So, if anything, I would say quite interesting that on hole 6, we've intersected it twice, sort of a smaller, thinner zone like we saw in hole 3, and then a broader zone beneath. And then I think quite intriguing that we finished in with hole 7 being invisible gold at 150 meters down hole, and then finishing in 5.5 meters of quartz, I think is quite interesting. So yeah, I mean, that's really, I mean, we don't obviously know how it's going to grade, but I would be very happy if it graded anything like that first round.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's just, I'll take just an ounce per ton. If it's just an ounce per ton versus however many 5 ounces per ton or more, I'll take that.
So in terms of timing, you're thinking at some point in October, hopefully we'll get some results back?
Yeah, I mean, so the last time that we sent off assays and using the exact same format, it was I think it was inside about 3 weeks. So certainly we're able to turn that around and get it out to the market in a month. That would be my hope. Whether that's a fair expectation given what's happening in Victoria will remain to be seen. But yeah, it will certainly we'll look to get out results up to hole 7 as soon as we can, pulling for October.
And you're drilling on the 9th hole right now. Do you have a sense of kind of a better sense of the orientation now that you've had a couple of holes out and seen some of these results?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think we every hole we put into this, we learn more, right? I mean, I think I would have ideally put out I mean, that's the thing is you're kind of caught with putting out a release that we don't have assays yet, we haven't completed all the work, but you want to update the market and let them know, right? I think it's important for shareholders and investors looking at what we're doing to sort of understand where we are. But every hole we are putting in right now is telling us more, right? So if I've used the analogy that we kind of feel like we have a tiger by the tail, and right, I mean, so you've got this sort of ribbon of quartz deep underground, and we're putting drill holes in that are very small, right? I mean, the kind of the width of my wrist, and deep underground, and we've been in gold 5 out of 7 times. So there's so much more that we can do just from this pad. I think that we can still explore at depth. We can explore sort of fanning out from where we are. And then I think taking the information that we have, then we can look at exploring what other pads we want to permit, take all of this information in and consider what directions do we want to try to hit this vein from, right? To give us the most information possible, and yeah, not to be hitting it at such an angle, drilling right down from on top of it. So, but the more we drill, the more we're going to learn. And this, I mean, just for context, this is just one vein that we're in underneath one gold mine on the property, historic gold mine, and we know there's over 70 historic gold mines on the property. So there's just so much to do just at Happy Valley, and then just along the 7 kilometers of trend that we have there. And then of course we're within a property where we have these other clusters of historic gold mines that have seen no modern exploration at all.
Well, and yeah, it's interesting. If you look at the map, there's obviously a lot of historical workings to the north and to the west. You mentioned Twist Creek. So what kind of work are you doing on the rest of the property while you're drilling out Happy Valley?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Tina. So we flew LiDAR. So really what that shows us is going to show us kind of the surface expression, quite helpful with regard to knowing if being able to see if there's existing tracks that were used historically. So it makes it a lot easier to permit that when you're not having to build entirely new tracks, and you can leverage off tracks that have already been made. So doing that work and at the same time doing soil geochemistry work, rock sampling, really in various areas of the property. I would suggest Twist Creek is quite intriguing to us. I think Happy Valley was the lowest hanging fruit. And so you're talking about a historic gold mine that produced an ounce per ton, and no one's drilled underneath it, right? So that was pretty low hanging fruit. And I mean, when I had a call with Eric Sprott when we did the financing, he said, like, in what world do you have a mine that produces at an ounce per ton gold and nobody drills underneath it, right? So that one was just the lowest possible hanging fruit. I would suggest probably the second biggest priority for us is this Twist Creek area. So that will be the subject of future news. And we've been busy this summer, and now we've got this news out on Happy Valley. I think you can expect to see a steady stream of news from us going forward here.
And given the success that you've had so far on Happy Valley, would you be considering adding more rigs to increase drilling?
Definitely. I mean, I think that's what I'm experiencing in this role is, I mean, the investment community really got taken with the results that we've had at Happy Valley. And then the expectation, I think, and perhaps I've had this expectation as an investor too, is that you're going to go from sort of one rig to you're going to have IR ready to go to field all of this interest. You're going to have double, triple your employees, and I mean, and obviously that's not like just turning on a light switch, right? It takes work. It takes interviewing. It takes finding candidates that can that are very well qualified. Now, having the best results in the area as far as exploration really helps in attracting talent. But yeah, I mean, you have to have the targets, right, in order to bring the drilling to bear. And so that's what we've worked on, is we've doubled our team doing targeting in the field. Right, each one's you've got to have capable staff, geologists to be able to lead. So bringing in Caitlin has on a full-time basis. She's really being the first full-time employee in Australia. Bringing now in a VP X and sort of country manager there for Australia too is really going to enhance our footprint there. And we want this VPX to be able to put his or her stamp on what we do going forward. So we'll be taking a lot more information in, and like I said, we get smarter every time we put a drill hole into Happy Valley. And then I think we'll be able to we'll have sort of a more target-rich environment on the whole property. We'll know more about how we want to approach Happy Valley and sort of bring in, be able to leverage the entire team that we have to approach it. And then, yes, I mean, right, the first focus is to be able to go to 2 drill rigs at full time, right? 2 drill rigs spinning at once all the time. And then, I mean, let's not forget Beaufort too, where I think I mean, look forward to putting some assays out there, but I think really encouraged by our drilling there as well. So, I mean, yeah, 2 rigs just to start.
And I guess on the topic of ramping up drilling and increasing staffing, there was a question from the audience about workforce availability. I think you addressed it a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, so it's a competitive market there at the best of times, given the number of companies working there. But now you've had with COVID and these strains and Australia having a particularly difficult time of it most recently. And I think all the developed countries have at some point had a very difficult time with COVID, and Australia's just came later than the rest of us because they initially done such a good job. And so these states were locked down, right? So you could not, if you've got someone in New South Wales that you want to come to bring to the property, you can't do it. It's locked down. Right, we're able to send core and stuff across the borders, but that has exacerbated a problem. Now it's the same for everybody in the region, and I think Australia have now shown that they're vaccinating at an incredible pace, and I think are now putting other countries to shame as far as how quickly and well adopted vaccines have been, and so I think we look forward to being able to resume normal working business before too long. And heck, I look forward to getting there and being able to meet with people in the communities and to get my hands and boots dirty there as well. So all that, I mean, we have not had a problem acquiring the staff that we need. Like I said, being able to add Caitlin to the existing team already was huge, and getting this VPX hire over the line will also be huge. And so I look forward to announcing that before too long.
Okay, great. And just turning to infrastructure for a little bit, can you talk about infrastructure in the area? And there's a question from the audience as well about how far both of the assets were by road from Fosterville.
Oh, I mean, well, you're a few hours away from Melbourne, right? So and then this area of the world is 80 million ounces of historic gold production. So you're really in, I mean, Ballarat is a historic gold mining town that is just around the corner. It is not, and then you've got Bendigo. So you've got all of these historic gold mining towns. We've had very good access to drilling, very good rates for drilling. Like I said, sub 200 meters, $200 per meter. So really anything you need to conduct a modern exploration drill campaign is there, right there. I mean, we're talking about, because of the success we've had, wanting to ramp up, and so that has your additional challenges of being able to find qualified people within the states, and really the best people available, or in some cases maybe not obviously available. So that has been, but there's been no bottleneck relative to infrastructure or bringing to bear what we need on the properties.
And do you have a sense in terms of the overall timeline for drilling? I know we kind of started off with this 20,000 meter program, but things are advancing rapidly at Myrtleford. What's your sense of how this program is going to play out? And then when would you start planning the subsequent program?
Yeah, so we will want to get a rig back to Beaufort to follow up on drilling there. I mean, I would think at Myrtleford, really right off the bat, I'd like to have a rig at Happy Valley going constantly, and then a regional rig also at Myrtleford. So we're now, so that was hole 9 of this program. We're going to still continue to do more drilling from this pad at Happy Valley. When we wrap up that program, we'll communicate with the market again, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to talk about assays as well. But it's really, I mean, we've we're in a good position from a cash perspective, but we want to be responsible with shareholders' money. We don't want to go off half-cocked and be drilling in areas that we don't. I mean, I think that's what we've done so far with our targeting is we've had really strong indications of where we should be drilling, right? And I think we've been relatively conservative, but I think quite successful with and accurate with our drilling. And I don't think we don't want to sacrifice that. I think we want to continue with a conservative approach for now, and finish this program, and then take in all of that information and let all of the smart people that we have working in the company decide how best to approach sort of a phase 3 of drilling. We're now in this phase 2 of drilling, how to approach a phase 3 and take Happy Valley to the next level.
Okay, and what about permitting for drill programs? Where do you stand in currently and programs going forward?
Permitting has gone very well, right? I mean, I think we've had an excellent time of it in Victoria. So it just, I mean, you're talking about a first world democracy in Australia and Victoria, obviously, and so all of your I's need to be dotted, all of your T's need to be crossed. I think we've got a well-experienced team there that is able to, and I mean, that's part of not expanding or beyond what your capability is before you actually have all of the qualified people to advance these things, is that when we've had a drill site and is having drill sites that are capably managed, that you're taking into account the expectations of the government and the community, so that if upon site inspections you have sites and drilling campaigns that will withstand scrutiny, and that's what we have. And so you don't want to get over your skis, out over your skis, and be sort of extending yourself beyond your capability. And I think that's what we want to make sure that we do, is that we intelligently, even though we have the money and we've had some success here with grade and widths, is that we want to make sure that we're advancing this in a smart way, and that we truly have, when we're drilling, we know that we've got really good targets for that money.
Yeah, for sure. And seems like some institutions are on board with the story as well. Are you able to give any color about which institutions are involved?
Yeah, I mean, so Eric is obviously an institution unto himself, and Commodity Capital out of Germany have been involved, Palos out of Montreal, and then US Global have also been involved. So those are 4 names right off the top of my head.
All right. Well, that's great. We're coming up on the hour. Before I let you have the final word, again, congratulations. You know, there's a lot of things I like about this story. It's early days, but extremely promising. The cap structure is very tight as well. And I think for a small cap mining company, it's very difficult to do a financing without a warrant, never mind a half warrant. And you guys have done some straight share deals and kept the structure very clean. So congratulations on that as well. But I'll leave it with you to maybe summarize some of the value drivers and the value propositions for E79.
Thank you, Tina. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to your audience. Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on it there, is the tight share structure, only 65 million issued and outstanding. No warrants, no overhang there. So in an environment where we expect to be very newsy, that we're ramping up over the next year, right? And with no requirement to go back to the market, no need to issue more shares. With this tight capital structure, there's an ability on news and success, which we expect to be successful for this stock and this company to do well, right? And I think there's a lot of runway there for the stock to perform if we're able to perform. And I think we've had a good track record so far.
That's great. Well, thanks so much for the presentation. And I think we're all pretty excited and looking forward to the drill results to come.
Likewise. Thank you very much, Tina. Thanks for having me.